It's an exodus of epic proportions. Within a single hour of setting foot in Las Vegas, a deluge of tourists is desperately booking flights to escape. This city, once a beacon of fantasy and fortune, now triggers an immediate, frantic urge to leave. What in God's name has happened? There was a time not so long ago when Las Vegas was a glittering, seductive promise in the heart of the desert. A sanctuary where the lights burned eternal, where one turn of a card could rewrite your destiny. But today, while the neon still screams into the night, it screams into a void. Who is it trying to attract? The hotels stand like mausoleums, eerily silent. Casinos, once throbbing with a feverish energy, now feel like cavernous, soulless tombs. And the symphony of slot machines and roaring crowds has been replaced by the haunting, aimless shuffle of the homeless, the city's own discarded people, now its most permanent, unwilling residents. How did this city of dazzling spectacle become so utterly cold and broken? Could it be that after the endless nights of indulgence, a brutal dawn has arrived, forcing a reckoning with a reality where no card can save you? In today's video, we dare you to walk with us through these streets, now stripped of all joy, to expose the terrifying truth of why Las Vegas, once the indestructible symbol of the American dream, is now in a quiet, catastrophic free fall. And the chilling question we must all confront is, who would be foolish enough to gamble their future in a place that has become a paradise of forgetting everything, including its own soul? No one who ever held a shred of affection for this city could have braced themselves for this horrifying spectacle. Endless rows of slot machines, still flashing their hypnotic, dazzling lights, but not a single soul stands before them. The once familiar cacophony, the rattle of dice, the triumphant roars of winners, the clinking of glasses deep into the night. All of it has been swallowed by a chilling, unnatural silence that now suffocates these empty casinos. The cruel irony is that the brilliant neon signs now only serve to illuminate the stark, cold emptiness, like a magnificent stage set for a play with no actors. Perhaps it was pure arrogance that no one foresaw how the absence of a supposedly small contingent of tourists, Canadians, Europeans, and the winter snowbirds, would trigger such a devastating and unstoppable domino effect. From the historic Fremont district to the once teeming Strip, from opulent convention centers to the most luxurious hotels, Las Vegas is in the grips of a silent but agonizing transformation. From the world's playground, it is rapidly devolving into a wasteland of despair. According to the grim assessment of economist Stephen Miller from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, international visitors plummeted by a staggering 6.5% in 2025, with an alarming 11% free fall in June alone compared to the previous year. This marks the first double-digit plunge since the pandemic's darkest days. At Harry Reid International Airport, the lifeblood of tourism is draining away, with passenger traffic in decline for 4 consecutive months, while hotels report a terrifying drop in bookings from their most valuable patrons, the high rollers, the conference attendees, and the international guests. But the rot goes deeper than mere statistics. A tourist, returning after 25 years, delivered a damning verdict. Vegas still has a certain allure, but it's a ghost of its former self. It's obscenely expensive, people are taking their money and running elsewhere, and he's right. The cheap Vegas is now nothing but a distant memory, a myth for those who remember the 1980s. Ocean One Bar and Grill, a bastion of affordability with its $4.90 9-cent lunches, was forced to shut its doors in 2024. That hotel room advertised for $99, a complete sham. After they pile on the hidden fee, the price skyrockets to $175. Buried in fine print, you'd need a microscope to read. A resort fee of $55, a room tax of 13.38%, and, insultingly, a winter pool usage fee, even when the pool is closed. All of this has twisted the dream of a vacation into a rigged game, a blatant shakedown of your wallet where the house ensures you are always the loser. But worse, so much worse, is the scene unfolding just outside the casino doors. The areas once swarming with gleeful tourists are now encircled by grim rows of makeshift tents. The homeless, many of whom once worked in these very casinos, are now forced to sleep in the shadows of the glowing billboards that once promised them a living. The streets that once radiated a welcoming energy now inspire a hurried pace, thick with a palpable sense of danger and desperation. Businesses are gripped by a quiet panic, terrified that this grim reality will permanently scare away the middle-class tourists, especially the older visitors who no longer feel safe enough to ever return to Las Vegas. And the consequences of this neglect are becoming terrifyingly clear. Revenue from gambling, the so-called gaming wins, which forms the very financial spine of this city, is in a state of alarming decline. Hotels and casinos are beginning to confess to plummeting profits as visitor numbers dwindle. Stays are cut short and guests clutch their wallets with a new desperate caution. A veteran casino manager offered a chilling admission. Vegas hasn't collapsed yet, but we are all watching the cracks spread. The dream chasers of 1995, who arrived with less than $200 for 3 days of magic, now find themselves gouged for a $40 snack, a $10 slice of pizza, and a scandalous $10 for a single glass of water. And make no mistake, they were driven out not by a lost bet, but by the chilling realization that they are no longer welcome in this city of greed. But it's the ones who were forced to remain, the workers, those clinging to fading memories, the people with nowhere left to go, who see the terrifying cracks spreading through the city's foundation. And they are the ones paying the ultimate price. This is no longer about business. It's a soul-crushing betrayal of a city once built so that anyone, rich or poor, could taste the high life, even for just a few days. So I ask you, if the soul of Las Vegas itself is being auctioned off to the highest bidder, what possible hope is there for the American dream anywhere else? A horrifying 770,000 Americans were thrown into the nightmare of homelessness in 2024, the highest, most shameful level recorded in decades. This is not some localized problem. It is a silent, creeping plague, spreading like a cancer from decaying industrial towns to the world's most famous tourist destinations. And Las Vegas, once a desert paradise of light, has become a furnace of human suffering, with temperatures soaring past a brutal 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Everywhere you look, makeshift tents cobbled together from scrap fabric, splintered pallets, and torn plastic tarps scar the landscape along the Strip. This city, once a glittering haven for tourists and those dreaming of striking it rich, is being systematically consumed by a homelessness crisis that has conquered every corner of Las Vegas, replacing the hopeful tourists and becoming a permanent, ghastly feature of an urban landscape on the verge of total collapse. By 2025, it's estimated that nearly 8,000 homeless people will be fighting for survival in Clark County, a chilling statistic from the Southern Nevada homeless continuum of care. They are no longer hiding in public parks or under forgotten overpasses. These urban encampments of the damned are erupting right at the entrances of luxury hotels, five-star restaurants, and the legendary casinos themselves. This unavoidable presence doesn't just chip away at the manufactured glamour of the city, it poisons the experience for anyone, even those who have visited for years. A man in his 60s, who first saw Vegas in 1995, returned only to warn, the lights are still on, the music is still playing, but it doesn't feel welcoming anymore. Everything has become cold and a little bit scary. And then comes the ultimate sign of the apocalypse. The homeless have begun appearing inside the casinos. They aren't there to test their luck. They are there for a sliver of air-conditioned air, a moment of light, and the fleeting feeling of being treated like a human being. But as this desperate image became more visible, the corporate behemoths, the massive hotels and casinos, were forced to tighten security, deliberately transforming places that once symbolized boundless freedom into suffocating, exclusionary fortresses. But beneath it all, there is a far darker world, one that is almost completely invisible to the city above. An estimated 1,200 to 1,500 people are living in the vast drainage tunnel system beneath the Strip, mere feet below the obscene luxury of casinos like Caesar's Palace. A system designed for stormwater has become their only home. These dark, damp tunnels are now a grim sanctuary for a forgotten community, where darkness is their only companion, and the muffled roar from above is a bitter, constant reminder of the world that has utterly abandoned them. Some have been down there for 5, 10, even 13 years, hiding from the sun, from judgment, and worst of all, from hope itself. A woman in her 50s, a former housekeeper, whispered from the shadows, "At least here no one kicks me out." Up there, they don't even consider me part of their world. In the heart of one of America's most vibrant cities, an entire class of people has been condemned to live in absolute, unending darkness. If Las Vegas, the city where the lights never ever go out, is not warm enough to shelter those it has left behind, then where in this nation can anyone truly call a haven? Gaze down at Las Vegas from a plane at night, and the lights still sparkle, a perfect diamond in the desert. But that is a carefully crafted lie. If you dare to look closer, not through a camera, but with your own eyes, you will see the terrifying truth. Those very lights are reflecting the deep, violent precariousness of a city that has become far too expensive to be called livable. So many people are still clinging to the dangerous myth that Las Vegas is some kind of affordable paradise, a beautiful escape for residents and gamblers alike. But in 2025, to maintain even a basic existence in Vegas, a single person will need between $2,985 and $3,063 every single month just for housing, food, transportation, and survival. For a family of 4, it's not a dream, it's a financial death sentence. The cost of survival here is staggering, a crushing $5,427 a month. And that's before you even dare to think about rent. Forget the myth of winning big. The house always wins. And now the average rent alone will set you back $1,635 every single month, while the dream of home ownership has exploded into a nightmare, costing over $544,000. Basic survival is a luxury, with electricity and water draining nearly $260 a month, and the relentless pain at the pump hovers around $3.80 per gallon. Even the simplest staples are now an extravagance. A gallon of milk costs nearly $5. A single loaf of bread is over $4, and a dozen eggs, once the bedrock of an affordable breakfast, now mockingly demand $4. For the hopeful tourist, a week-long escape to Las Vegas is no longer a dream, but a financial fantasy, with the average cost spiraling to $2,583 per person, a sum that eclipses a full month's wages for countless workers across the nation. And inside that glittering mirage of a city, those who once built their futures here are now forced to agonize over every cent for a loaf of bread, weighing the impossible choice between gas for their car and the medication that keeps them alive. A retired couple from Colorado confessed their dream was to move to Vegas for its affordability, a dream now utterly shattered. After crunching the horrifying numbers, they were forced to retreat to their hometown. For them, a big win is no longer about jackpots. It's the grim victory of scraping by, paying rent without begging their children for help. Trapped in this economic vice, a growing number of people are being forced into a minimalist existence, desperately seeking any shield for their finances and their sanity. A chorus of independent channels and organizations is now urgently pleading with the middle-aged to adopt tools like EverSafe, a personal finance sentinel designed to help seniors track their vanishing funds, shield their accounts from predators, and sound the alarm on any suspicious drain of their resources. With a single button press, EverSafe becomes a silent guardian in a treacherous city where absolutely everything, including your trust, is for sale. So if even Las Vegas, the city that once sold a fantasy of opulent living to every class, has slammed its golden doors on the average person, where in God's name is that promise left in America? Las Vegas was legendary as the city whose lights never dimmed. But the light now flashing most often isn't the alluring glow of neon signs, but the cold, sterile beam of security systems, a stark warning that something has gone terribly wrong. In 2025, the iconic streets surrounding the Strip, once teeming with life, become ghost towns after 9 p.m. This isn't a city at rest, it's a city gripped by fear, where people no longer dare to walk the streets at night as they once did. The cold hard data from Clark County confirms this creeping dread. Public disturbances and street violence have surged by a terrifying 14% compared to this time last year, with the danger concentrated right in the heart of its tourist centers. A retired security guard, a man who spent over 20 years protecting a major hotel, shared his heartbreak. "I once truly believed Vegas was a sanctuary, a place where anyone could live out a fantasy for a few days. But now, when I look at these same streets, all I feel is a deep, chilling fear." There's no denying it. The toxic fallout from the pandemic, combined with a volatile economy, has created a dangerously unpredictable powder keg. Countless residents have been thrown into a state of precarious survival, while international visitors have begun to question the very safety, not just of their wallets, but of their well-being, their very peace of mind, when considering Vegas as a destination. A damning report from a travel firm reveals that last-minute hotel cancellations on the Strip skyrocketed by 18% in the second quarter of 2025, driven by raw fear of the volatile environment. The faithful regulars, people who return to Las Vegas year after year, are now fleeing to quieter, safer havens, cities where they can simply breathe without constantly looking over their shoulder. This terrifying transformation didn't happen overnight. It was a slow poisoning, like countless drops of despair eroding a foundation, like a relentless wind of fear extinguishing the last flame of hope. The city's elderly, the ones who remain, say the deepest wound isn't the silence of the empty streets, but the agonizing feeling of being an alien in the one place they called home. If a city built on dreams and indulgence now breeds only anxiety and caution, what does that say about the soul of America itself? A grim paradox is playing out in the heart of Las Vegas. This city once boasted of creating hundreds of thousands of jobs annually, a vibrant ecosystem of service staff, guides, engineers, and technicians. But now, in 2025, every one of those stage lights is going dark, and with them, the brilliant careers and hopeful dreams they once illuminated. As of the middle of 2025, it's a grim reality. Las Vegas is hemorrhaging jobs, with an unemployment rate soaring to a staggering 6.2%, a full 2 percentage points higher than the national average, a damning figure straight from the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics. And in the very heart of its economy, the hospitality and service industry, the numbers are a catastrophe, as hotels and resorts, once beacons of prosperity, are forced to gut their staff, while the flow of tourists and conferences dwindles to a trickle. An entire generation was sold a promise, a bedrock belief that hard work was the ultimate shield against poverty. Now they are forced to stand by and watch that promise shatter as hotel operations are gutted, shows go dark, and stages are abandoned with no hope of a comeback. The irony is sickening. People who built stable lives with solid salaries, insurance, and even homes on the back of the entertainment industry are now thrown upon the mercy of friends. They're relying on family or shuffling between temporary shelters. Their lives upended in a cruel twist of fate. The diplomas in tourism and hotel management that once hung with pride are now nothing more than bitter souvenirs of a time when dedication actually meant something. If a whole city was founded on the gospel of opportunity, what does it mean when the very people who power it are cast out? Where did we go so catastrophically wrong? And who will dare to right this ship before the next generation is also dragged down into this vicious, repeating cycle of despair? There was something that once set Las Vegas apart, a quality that now feels like a distant, fading memory. It was a city where the working class could still feel like royalty, not in wealth, but in the simple dignity of enjoyment. A lunch buffet after a grueling shift, a free show to lift the spirits, a weekend night spent with a few coins in a slot machine. These weren't handouts, they were the small, earned rewards for the silent army that keeps the city's lifeblood pumping. But in recent years, that social contract has been broken. Not in a single cataclysmic event, but through a slow, creeping decay, like a light bulb flickering before it dies completely. Paychecks have flatlined, but the cost of mere existence has launched a silent, relentless assault. From healthcare and car insurance to the phone bill, the internet, and even the most basic school supplies for their children have become weapons in a war against the working family. Survival itself now demands a level of calculation more intense than any high-stakes poker game, and the house always seems to win. Countless middle-aged residents have been forced to surrender the basic dignities once considered standard for the middle class, like owning a new car every 5 to 7 years, holding a life insurance policy, or simply treating their family to a local show during the holidays. Now those aspirations are ghosts, taunting them from glittering LED billboards along the highway. Because the middle class, the supposed backbone of society, the bridge between the haves and the have-nots, is being systematically dismantled, both in numbers and in spirit. A devastating survey by the Pew Research Center confirms this terrifying reality. The share of Americans who can even call themselves middle class has plummeted by over 10 percentage points in the last 2 decades alone, and Las Vegas stands as a grim monument to this rapid decay. A place where stable careers as event organizers or lighting technicians or administrative assistants are being ruthlessly erased by automation and outsourcing, casting thousands into a terrifying economic limbo. Not poor enough for government aid, but nowhere near wealthy enough to survive the onslaught. If the very generation that built a stable America is now fighting a losing battle with every single bill, who will be left to teach the next generation that hard work pays off? There was a time when the mere mention of Las Vegas conjured a paradise of light and limitless potential. It was a sanctuary where anyone, rich or poor, could stake their claim, test their luck, and chase their own version of the American dream. This city wasn't just built from concrete. It was forged from raw ambition, a blind faith in opportunity, and the seductive illusion that if you just dared to play, you would inevitably win. But by 2025, that glittering postcard is a lie. Las Vegas is no longer a dream. It has become a cruel cautionary tale. It's a place where the neon facade of the casino still burns with blinding intensity. But behind it lie the cold, empty tombs of abandoned meeting rooms. It's a place where billboards scream about a vacation of a lifetime right next to the desperate, temporary shelters of the homeless. The grand dream of winning the jackpot has been grotesquely replaced by the grim reality of just surviving, where having enough to pay this month's power bill is the new grand prize. That so-called American dream, once a sacred image of a small house, a steady job, and a hopeful future, is crumbling to dust in the very place that once sold it to the world. Vegas is no longer where anything is possible. It's where hope goes to die. But a terrifying void where every boundary has been deliberately erased. Between the tourist and the vagrant, the billionaire and the beggar, the American dream and a waking nightmare. The story of Vegas is not just about one city. It is a shattered mirror forcing a nation to gaze upon its own grotesque reflection and ask what catastrophic misstep led us here. Were we so blinded by the ambition of paving grand new avenues that we annihilated the sacred, narrow alleys of the human heart? Was it our staggering arrogance, the belief that technology, raw investment, and hollow growth indicators could ever replace the very essence of our existence? Community, human connection, and hope itself. In this desperate era, where countless people are being crushed by economic pressure, solutions offering simple, balanced living are no longer a choice, but a critical lifeline. Discover the Better Living Box, a service dedicated to helping our seniors live with health, dignity, and economic sanity, delivering monthly essentials from dietary supplements to sustainable goods. The link is in the description. But if to untamed freedom and pure joy is now collapsing under its own weight, what place on earth is still strong enough to hold the promise of the American dream we were sold? Las Vegas was never an ordinary city. It has always been a harbinger, leading the nation both in its wildest fantasies and its most devastating crises. When the economy boomed, Vegas was where money hemorrhaged like water from a wound. But when the tremors of instability began, began, this city was the first to feel the sickening, bone-shattering impact of the fall. Today, people come to Vegas not merely for spectacle, but for a grim diagnosis. Because if you truly want to understand the sickness in the heart of America, you don't need the sterile theater of a congressional hearing. You need only to walk the Strip, to step past the sprawling encampments of the forgotten, to hear the death rattle of air conditioners and roach-infested motels, and to stare into the vacant eyes of those forced to sell their very souls for pocket change. Economic experts are screaming a warning. What is happening in Las Vegas is a horrifying blueprint for every other city built on the flimsy promise of tourism. From Orlando to Atlantic City, from Reno to San Diego, all clinging to the fragile, dying hope of middle-class stability. In Vegas, when a class of people collapses, no one catches them. The locals will tell you, their voices hollowed by loss. They've seen too many friends thrown from their homes, too many family businesses shuttered forever, and too many children growing up in the predatory glare of casino lights. Nothing surprises them now. Yes, there are feeble attempts at recovery, some local funds, a few church programs, but human strength is finite. And this tidal wave of despair is overwhelming. What Las Vegas is suffering is not just an industry crisis. It is the complete and utter breakdown of a social model where the lie of self-reliance is no longer enough to pull a single soul from the abyss. Is Las Vegas an outlier, or is it a terrifying microcosm of a nation at a fatal crossroads between hope, nostalgia, and a reality that is cracking apart, day by agonizing day? Las Vegas has not fallen, not yet. The lights still burn with a manic intensity. The signs blinking through the night, as if to deny the very existence of crisis. But look closer, and you will see the fissures spreading everywhere. From the opulent lobbies to the pitch-black underground tunnels, from the gilded nostalgia of the 1990s to the canvas slums lining the avenues, no one is claiming that Vegas is all of America. But it is precisely because it isn't that it reveals a truth that is far more terrifying. If a city that was once the global symbol of prosperity, of the dream to live big and die trying, can slide so completely into ruin, then where is safe? Are we just witnessing an isolated catastrophe? Or is this the final warning siren for an America that is losing its soul in the very place it once built as the heart of its dreams? You must leave your comments below. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe so that we can continue to broadcast the stories that not everyone is willing to hear, but that every single person needs to know. Each share is a defiant act, a chance to awaken one more person who understands, to ignite one more person who cares, and to offer one more sliver of hope for those whose lives are being lived in absolute silence. This video is not intended as a condemnation of any organization, individual, or political entity. All information presented is meticulously sourced from publicly available data, official reports, and first-hand field observations gathered from a multitude of perspectives. The stories, images, and viewpoints presented are for educational purposes, reflecting stark social realities to provoke constructive discourse, not to incite panic, hatred, or dangerous generalizations. We do not and will not condone any illegal behavior. We will not normalize suffering, and we refuse to turn human misery into a spectacle for entertainment. This is not a conclusion. This is an urgent summons to reflect together, to engage in dialogue together, and to fight for the last embers of humanity that remain within each of us.